All right, everybody, how's it going? It is Thursday, August 31st, 2023, and of course, we're just before the start of the NFL season. Games begin next Thursday, a week from today, September 7th, 2023. Lions will take on the Chiefs. It'll be a pretty great game. So we have some predictions to do. We have to do the NFC tomorrow, awards on Saturday, then we do the playoffs on Sunday. So, just watch out for these videos that'll be coming out pretty soon. So we start with the AFC alphabetical order, and the AFC is a little bit better. I don't know, pretty standard intro to the video. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're going over the AFC divisional standings. Tomorrow we'll do the NFC divisional standings, and then we'll do our awards predictions. And then, of course, to wrap things up, we see how the playoffs go. And yeah, these are my season predictions. Always a fun time. I do pretty good on these last year. I do generally pretty good on these seasonal predictions. I'm pretty accurate. And there's always like one really big explosive take. Last year it was the Chargers would barely be a playoff team. And I nailed that, even though everyone said they'd be like this great dynasty, the start of a great dynasty or whatever the hell they were saying last year. I have a pretty broad, surprising take in here this year. That probably will generate a bit of, I don't know. I think people will disagree with me, but again, every year I have a big out there take, and I'm pretty much always getting it right. 6 for 6 or 5 for 6 on those kind of takes. So anyway, let's get right into the meat of the video. There's some things I want to talk about, like that'll explain why the video looks the way it does and why things look the way they do, but it'll all make sense. But again, just leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Leave your predictions down below. What do you think of the division? How it plays out? What do your AFC playoff standings look like? Just go ahead and leave your thoughts down below. I'll get back to those as soon as I can. I'm very good about commenting on video or comments on stuff like that. Or just leave whatever. If you think my predictions suck, say why, whatever you want to say. I don't really care. It's up to you. It's your comment. Just leave one. And like and subscribe if you're new, and just help the channel out. Sorry about the YouTube stuff. We won't do that again. Let's jump right into the quick stuff. We will not give exact records. It's not the point to like give the records. It's more the point of where they stand in the division and if they make the playoffs or not, which is what we're going to do. We're going to have like win ranges. I think that's the best way to do that. I don't think going for record predictions is a really strong thing. It's kind of irrelevant too, you know what I mean? If they make the playoffs or they don't. I will give brief explanations about why I think each team will place where they will, unless it's just obvious that they're a bad team. I'll probably just make some memes. And the way I kind of formulated this, I used a little bit of last season. I think the additions and losses of players, coaches, maybe changing of schemes. I think all those things played into this. And like in certain situations, I probably won't discuss like everything that I went into dictating my standings. I'll just give you like a quick rundown of why I put each team where I put them, especially the more controversial ones. I'll probably get more in depth on those. But generally I'm going like, just know that this isn't just like, oh, I think this. No, everything's been pretty well thought out, and I may not say the exact reasons, but like, 'cause that's kind of boring, but Just know that I've taken a lot into consideration for my predictions. Let's start with the AFC South, the easiest one to figure out, in my opinion. In fourth place, I think the Colts will finish around. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think they're a very young team with very little veteran leadership, with kind of a bad offensive line. Not that I think they are not talented. Again, just a very young team. I don't really like the receiving core. Don't really like the offensive line. The running game situation is going to be real ugly without Jonathan Taylor. So it's basically a very talented young quarterback in Anthony Richardson, with hopefully Michael Pittman, and a very questionable defense sometimes. So it's kind of just like, all right, the Colts are like a year or two away, new coaching, like they kind of are re-establishing themselves with Steichen. So it's kind of like, all right, take this as a mulligan year, build on this, see what you have working, and then kind of construct when you know what's here already. Yeah, the Colts might be pretty bad. Plus, screw Jim Irsay. Like, what is he doing? Did you guys see like what he wanted in return for Jonathan Taylor? If that's true, he's literally lost his mind. He wanted like all the good players and picks. It was crazy. He wanted like Waddle, Xavier Howard or something like that, or like it was Bradley Chubb. Like it was an insane wish list, and a second round pick. Ugh. Then I think the Houston Texans, about 4 to 7 wins. They're rebuilding. They're in like the second stage. If everything works out and all the picks and players that they signed and brought in kind of develop right under DeMeco Ryans, and they start going in the right direction, they could be wildly improved from last year. I think they have the most upside from all the bad teams from last year to be a good team this year, if that makes any sense. I think they're going in the right direction. They're building on their defense, which was pretty good last year, but there's still a lot of work to be done in Houston. I think they're better than the Colts though. Here's where it might be a little bit weird, is where I put the Jaguars as the team that finishes in second. While I do think that they played very well at the end of last year, they still played almost a half year of football that was pretty bad, and like it was just like there were two Jaguars last year. There was the bad and the good Jaguars, and I'm kind of looking at it like, well, what are they? Are they the team that made the playoffs at the end of last year? Or are they the team that kind of fumbled its way through the beginning of the year and then kind of got really good at the end? It's like, which are they going to be? I'm leaning toward the latter, which is why I have them as a second place team, but it's kind of like, do I think that they're good enough to kind of repeat last year and be like, take the next steps forward, or were they kind of just like taking advantage of a bad division and just like playing pretty decent football? They just got hot at the right time. So I don't really know. Again, if they come out and they kind of beat ass, and again, I'm going to be more convinced that they're a good team. But for right now, it's kind of like I have some questions about. We'll just see. It's like, yeah, they showed a lot of promise, a lot of steps forward, but are they actually that team? It's kind of a similar feeling I have for the Lions, actually. But like the Lions are they don't really have anyone else in their division that could potentially, like, an 8 to 10 win Lions team could, like, 10 wins can win the NFC North. Whereas like I don't think 10 wins this year can do it for the Jags. So again, I just got to see it. And like from the Titans, I think that as long as they can stay healthy, again, one of my big caveats for all this, as long as everybody stays healthy, this is probably how it plays out, right? They added Hopkins, so their offense should be improved. Burke looks much improved. Tannehill, as much as I don't like him, should be much improved with actual weapons to throw to. A somewhat improved offensive line. Derrick Henry should be fully healthy to go and not carrying as big a load because of Hopkins, because of Burke developing. So I do think that they have a much improved offense. Their defense will be solid if healthy. They have probably the best or second best coaching in the division. So again, it just seems like the Titans are set up to win this division and kind of not really win it easily because the Jaguars are good, but they should be able to pull this off. I like a lot of what they did. Getting Hopkins is huge for Burks and kind of alleviates the run game pressure, and that's pretty big. Keeping Henry fresher is very important. So kind of how I think the AFC South plays out. AFC West. Oh boy. The first two spots aren't really that controversial, right? It's the Raiders. We don't really know what they're going to look like. Can Jimmy G still play? Do they have a backup in case Jimmy doesn't play good or gets hurt? It's kind of like a bunch of questions about the Raiders. And there's very few players I'd caveat injury with, but it's like Jimmy always gets hurt, so it's kind of hard not to. I don't know. The defense doesn't really stand out at you except for like Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. You know what I mean? It just feels like they're like a little bit behind the rest of the teams in the division. Could they be a good team? Yeah, of course they could. They've got a very talented, potentially explosive offense if everything clicks together and works right. But again, the problem is more like the defense. They're playing in the AFC with kind of a crummy defense that can be thrown on. So it's kind of like, do they have enough offensive firepower to be in shootouts? And I don't think Jimmy G nor anyone on their roster is designed to play in a shootout. So that's part of the reason why I think the Raiders might struggle this year. Yeah. I don't know if McDaniels is a good head coach. He's a great offensive coordinator, potentially Hall of Fame worthy as a offensive coordinator, but it's like, as a head coach, oof. And then the Denver Broncos, I think they'll be much improved last year. They could even win 8, 9, 10 games. But again, in their division, it's probably not going to be enough to win it or be like a top 2 team. Because again, they play in a division with the Chargers and the Chiefs. Those are like 2 of the premier teams in the AFC this year, I'm thinking. So again, I think they're much improved and they take steps forward, but it's like they run into this brick wall of the 2 teams in their division ahead of them are potential Super Bowl teams. It's just like, yeah, that's just kind of the sad reality for the Broncos. Could they be a surprise team? Yeah, I think so. But like my head's saying they're an 8 to 10 win team, which will be, better than last year, but I don't know if it's good enough this year to make the playoffs. Here's my hot take, right? I'll just get the other team out there. So basically, the way I'm looking at this right now, and again, this is a hot take. So again, I could be wrong, and everybody can laugh at me later in the season, or I could be right and look like a genius like last year, and other years in the past. Essentially, what this take boils down to is, I know the Chiefs have, Marquise Valdes-Scantling. They've got Kadarius Toney, who kind of hurt right now. They've got Sky Moore and Justin Ross. that is a very underwhelming group of wide receivers. And like, I'm like, all right, that's not good. That's not a good group of receivers. If that was any other quadrant of receivers, that's mid and trash. They have Travis Kelce's very good. He's obviously one of the best in the game, if not the best tight end in the game. But the problem for me with Travis Kelce is he's going to be 34 in a month. And, you know, he played great last year, but man, 34 playing in your mid 30s is like a skill position player, like tight end, wide receiver, running back. Could be gone in an instant, just like that. You could be good next 1 year, then the very next season it just gone. Like, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case. He looks great in camp, but again, it's just something to keep in mind. They've been playing a lot of extra football, which starts to wear and tear on the body, especially for older players. So just keep all these things in mind regarding that. And I don't think, again, Mahomes is still one of the great quarterbacks. This isn't a knock against the Chiefs or Mahomes or anything. It's just I'm seeing things like, all right, the receiving core is a little bit weak this year. The run game is whatever. Pacheco could be good. He could be not. It's kind of like up in the air. Offensive line's pretty solid. A couple weak spots, but who doesn't have like one or two bad linemen? The thing I don't like, though, is the guy calling the plays is Matt Nagy again. Well, we're Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, if whatever you want to say. But again, it's kind of like a new offense, new scheme, not the biggest deal. But again, you know, Mahomes did take a couple years to learn Bieniemy and Reid's offense, so I wonder if there's any small changes, things that won't be happening. Because again, if you watched Bieniemy's offense in Washington this preseason or any of the training camps, they've been doing a lot of things that you see the Chiefs do the last few years in their camp. So it's like, oh, so some of this like creative spin around, just fancy like deceptive play stuff that they've been doing did come from Eric Bieniemy, maybe not Andy Reid, because again, before Eric Bieniemy showed up, those elements were not part of Andy Reid's offenses. These like the deceptive stuff, the spin arounds, the high trickery, that was just something I think that not even Matt Nagy was doing. I think that all started with Bieniemy. So something to think about. Will the Chiefs be this like super explosive, super tricky offense that is really like at times unpredictable and unexplainable? Maybe they will. Will it have the same authenticity without the guy actually being the creative force? Probably not. I think that'll kind of slow the Chiefs down. And again, my biggest concern now with them is the defense, right? They have an okay linebacker in Karlaftis. We'll see if he's any good. They have one good defensive lineman in Chris Jones, who won't be there for a little while. And their secondary has a gooder player or two, but I honestly don't think that they would start on most teams in the NFL. They'd be like depth pieces on like a good team. Like, and one of the reasons that they look kind of good or like deceptively better in Kansas City is because of what Chris Jones can do in terms of putting pressure on and getting sacks. That dude is a machine, and he makes quarterbacks make bad throws, rushes throws that shouldn't be made get made, defensive easy plays for the defense. And even then, even with Chris Jones, it seems like the Chiefs defense will give up a lot of points in that secondary. Again, it's like their only Achilles heel is kind of that secondary, one of the biggest ones. So we'll see how long they miss Chris Jones. If he misses 6 games, that could be enough for the Chargers. If he misses 3 games, imagine the Chiefs lose 2 of those, and suddenly the Chargers win the game by a division, or win the division by a game because of the Chris Jones situation. That is a major thing right now. That defense depends on that Chris Jones guy, and I think it falls apart without him. That's kind of those are the reasons why. Again, I don't really trust their offensive system right now until I see it in place. I think weak receiving core, new coach, kind of a lack running game, aging best player in Kelce. I think those things are going to weigh heavy on that offense. I don't know if it's going to be as efficient this year. And in a division and an AFC with the Chargers and all these other top teams that are like super explosive, I don't know if that like slows them down just a little bit. Again, they're still a playoff team and they're still going to be the 5 seed. But again, I just feel like the Chargers have fixed a lot of their woes. Very talented roster. I like the addition of Quentin Johnston. I like that they brought in a different offensive coordinator. I like that Brandon Staley, by the end of last year, seemed like he actually understood how to coach and knew what he was doing. Again, the bad playoff collapses, whatever. Again, there's just a lot of things I like, man. I think they fired all them doctors and old trainers that they had that got everybody hurt all the time. So they have a new medical staff in there. Everything's kind of fresh. I have real optimism, whereas last year I felt nothing for the Chargers. This year I'm like, why isn't everybody hyped for the Chargers this year? I think that everybody was off by 1 season. Had you guys all had this hype last year, you would have been correct. The Chargers could be one of the best rosters in the NFL with a very decent head coach, a very good coordinator now, good medical staff. Like, everything's improved there, and I think that's going to make all the difference. We'll see, though. Again, this is my hot take of the year as well, so there's just a few things I don't like about Kansas City, and I think it could make them lose 1 or 2 games that they need to win, and those are the ways that the Chargers could snake that division by just a game. All it takes is one extra loss that the Chiefs suffer because of no Chris Jones, and their defense gives up 40 in like 4 straight games. Then they have to pay Chris Jones. Plus, there could be weird problems in the locker room with them not paying Chris, and him holding out could lead to, it's a whole cacophony of issues where I just wonder, you know. Plus, I don't really think teams can repeat, you know. But I will say this, if you're still listening and you're a Chiefs fan, if you were to ask me who is more likely to play in the Super Bowl next year, even with the way I think the divisions play out, I think the Chiefs are more likely to go to the Super Bowl and probably win it. Like, I think it's more likely the Chiefs repeat, which I don't think teams can repeat in the modern NFL, than the Chargers get to the Super Bowl. But I do think the division plays out like this. There you go. AFC North. Pittsburgh Steelers. Basically, I only have them here because I think they're rebuilding. I think they're about a year, maybe 2 away from being like back to being the Steelers, the same old Steelers. Maybe next year they'll be back, like in their full form and glory once they have the offensive line up and running. Defense looks good. Offensive pieces look good. I want to see Piquet develop for another season, and I want to see what the offense looks like. If everything's clicking, they could be a better team than this. But again, it's just like a year away for them. That's the simplest thing I could say, like a year away. They're rebuilding and they're doing well. The Browns are the biggest asterisks in all of this. If Deshaun Watson can return to form like he was in Houston, then the Browns probably win this division. Like, they're the most likely team to actually win a division that I don't have winning the division, other than maybe the Chiefs, obviously. But if that team performs what its roster, like the players on its roster are capable of doing, they'll win the AFC North. But if they don't, and they kind of play like they have been, and I think Stefanski's coaching kind of causes that, I think they should fire him. I don't know why they haven't, but once they get rid of Stefanski, or maybe he rises above his crappy coaching tendencies, and the team actually like starts playing up to their potential, this is a really good team. But I have, again, all those questions, all those caveats. Can Deshaun get back to what he used to be? Makes me think that in this very talented division where everybody's probably finishing above 500, good luck to the Browns this year. You can't have that many questions or like that many caveats to doing good in this division and still expect to be like the top team in it. Especially when like the Ravens and the Bengals are like clearly 2 of the best teams in the NFL this like coming into this season. So in terms of like guys on, like, again, this whole division's really good. This was the hardest one to think about. I'm telling you, this one took me a while to try to come to these conclusions. It's like, well, what is the Browns' fatal flaw? Stefanski, and we don't know if Watson will get back to his old form. Those 2 things, and a lot of the Browns players kind of don't live up to how good they can be. So those 3 things kind of, the third one's more of a symptom of the first one, Stefanski being a bad coach. So, you know, those things are kind of holding me back against the 3rd place Baltimore Ravens. Or 2nd place Ravens. Yeah, I know. I have the Bengals winning. How brave, how insightful. But no, with the Ravens, I really like everything. Again, they stay healthy. They're a very good team. I like the addition of Odell. I think Zay Flowers is a great pickup. They seem to have a very good receiving core. I think their offense is going to be mightily improved. I don't really think they have the greatest run game behind Lamar, and I don't know how good their offensive line is going to be this year. And that kind of worries me about Lamar and the running game, and if all these addition of these new passers or receivers are going to be worth it. Again, now you have Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Odell, and of course, I just said all the people. Oh well, it doesn't really matter. They have a good receiving core now. Again, you know, the defense I'm a little bit questioning of, because again, it's lost a few guys. It hasn't really seemingly gained any big standout players. I do like Kyle Hamilton from like last year, the year before. He seems to be good, but again, it's just kind of slowly, like, I don't know how great their defense is, and I think the fact that their defense maybe lost a step or 2 over the last couple seasons as they've been kind of rebuilding it, remodeling it after some of their, like, you know, Hall of Fame level players have retired and left the game. So you know, and I think that the Bengals can take advantage of that. And like, even if it's by a game or two, I think that's basically all it's going to be. Look at basically it's within 2 games of each other, I think. If the Ravens win 10-12, say the Ravens win 11, Baltimore probably wins 12 or 13, or the Bengals probably win 12 or 13. It's like a game difference, and that game difference could be the games against each other in which the Ravens just can't really keep up with the Bengals, whereas I think the Bengals consistently improve their team, and they don't really need to make a bunch of crazy big additions to that team that's already really rock solid. They just gotta win a little bit better, maybe get a little older, stay a little healthier. But they have made offensive line. I can't remember who they've added, but I know they've made a few line additions. They drafted pretty good. I think things are looking pretty much like they're going to be pretty standard in Cincinnati with Burrow and Chase and everybody there. Good coaching. I don't know. Like, it seems like their only fatal flaw is literally like they kind of get hurt, and they kind of, you know, they're a pass heavy team, so come playoff time things kind of slow. But it seems like Mixon's kind of got things like refocused, and it seems like he may be ready to have a more attentive season coming up. So, you know, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. Basically, I just feel like the Bengals are slightly better than the Ravens. All right, we saved the best for last. The greatest division in the NFL. I'm sure this division will not create any angry fans or any angry people. Just know this is just my opinion, and you can always tell me why I'm wrong. You can tell me that I'm biased, but again, I try to do this with the least biased possible. Like, I genuinely don't consider my fandom of the Patriots when I do things like this. I try to be as third parties, like everybody who watches my channel regularly knows I'm very unbiased. I try to remain unbiased a little often it comes out, but everybody's got a little bias. But in things like this, I'm generally pretty honest about how I actually think. If I wasn't, I'd literally just flash ahead and be like, Patriots win the division, suck my fucking dick. We will rise again. If I was biased, I'd just do that, even though that'd be way funnier. And like, the idea of doing that, it was very tempting after like I give this like serious, like a pretty thoughtful breakdown of each like placement, and then I just go boom boom boom, they suck, they suck, they suck, and the Patriots are back. I was like, that would be so fucking funny if I just threw the whole thing off. But no, I actually did give this some serious thought. And again, I'm probably going to be wrong here, but we'll see. I've never really been wrong about the Jets before, and I don't think this is the year I start being wrong about the New York Jets. Where do I begin? I think their head coach is a joke. I think their coordinators are bad. I think Joe Barry doesn't really understand the quarterback, or Joe Douglas doesn't know how to discover quarterbacks or what to do about quarterbacks. And I don't really think he fundamentally understands how to build an offense around a quarterback, because again, he doesn't know how to understand what quarterbacks are. Now that first part's out of the way about how I think they're incompetently ran, Salah's a great defensive coordinator, but I think he's a bad head coach, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't see anything last year that told me he was good. He's like a good speaker, but it's like, so are most coaches, except maybe like Matt Patricia. Really what this boils down to is I think the Jets have a terrible offensive line, and I think that terrible offensive line is going to get a 40-year-old quarterback who is in decline, not by much, but physically he's in decline, right? Very few people go into 40 as fast as they were 5-6 years ago. And again, we've seen that last year in Green Bay. He couldn't get around as easily, the line, like he was hit more often. He wasn't as good on the run. More pressure was being applied. It seemed like he, for the first time, wasn't able to just kind of fall back on his wide array of physical character, like his physical traits that he's always had been. Slight decline, maybe. Maybe he just didn't give a shit anymore in Green Bay and didn't want to go through anything. Both could be true, but one could be more true than the other. Is kind of how I look at it, and I think the decline's happening. Again, watching the Packers preseason, it seems like Dobbs, it seems like Watson are pretty solid little receivers. I don't really see why his numbers fell as hard as they did. Last year, it seems like it's either a lack of caring for the situation, or he maybe fell off a little bit. I don't know. There's that to be seen. I still think that's a question to be had. So I look at this, I see a bad line that got pretty much all their quarterbacks hurt last year and their star running back Breece Hall hurt. That didn't improve much. They'll have Tucker and they'll have Becton until hopefully they can both stay healthy, crossing my heart, hoping they do. But again, neither has proven that they can stay healthy. And especially Becton. And if they go down, that line has nobody on it, and that's not good with a 40-year-old quarterback, an injured, a running back coming in off of an ACL, and a running back that's already had an ACL and other injuries in the past in Dalvin Cook. I think he got hurt last year, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, all right, so you have two guys who've been injured, both have torn their ACLs, and Cook and Breece Hall, behind a bad offensive line with two good blockers, and Aaron Rodgers, who's 40 and showed signs of decline. Not saying he's declining, he showed the signs. I don't necessarily think that that's like suddenly groundbreaking or innovative. Yeah, they've got good receivers, but what fucking good is that if you can't get them the ball? Or Rodgers is like, it's just like, yeah, it's could be good, it could be real bad. We'll find out. They have a great defense, and that'll keep them in most of their games like last year. But I just don't. I wonder if their defense also is as good as it was last year now that there's tape and people can figure out how to find the weaknesses and exploit things. I wonder if Sauce Gardner gets as much room to hold and do all the penalties he did last year. Again, there's just a few things you think about with this team, specifically around that offense. Is like, is it really that much better than last year? Yeah, they got Aaron Rodgers. Cool. Hopefully he's still as good as hopefully he can run. But again, until we see the line blocking and Rodgers succeeding with behind it, it's like I don't really believe anything special is going on in New York. I don't buy hype unless there's real hype. Like I don't personally see it. I've seen the Jets signing a 40-year-old quarterback trying to do what Tampa Bay did with Tom Brady, and guess what? Aaron Rodgers isn't Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers isn't beating Father Time. Aaron Rodgers, part of the reason he was so successful and good at football was because of his physical traits, right? He could move, he can throw on the run, he can break out of the pocket, he can extend plays with his feet. He's got this dynamo arm that can throw it all over. But when you turn 40, these things start to decline. Your speed goes down, your explosiveness goes down, your arm strength goes down. And when you're the greatest of all time because of your physical traits, or like when you have some of the greatest physical talent of all time, like Rodgers does, what happens when that starts to decline? Your skill goes down. The things you depended on are gone. And I think in a much better AFC East than the NFC North has ever been, in an AFC that, I mean, Rodgers struggled against the NFC last year. How's he going to do against the AFC with 2, maybe 3 whole bad teams in the entire fucking AFC? Like literally, there's only like 2-3 bad teams. It's like the Colts and the Texans. Everybody else is a really solid football team that could win a lot of games and really wouldn't. Like even the Raiders, even the Jets, Raiders, Dolphins, Patriots, Browns, Steelers. If any of those teams pop the fuck off and won, nobody would be that shocked. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Like the only teams you'd be shocked about is the Colts and the Texans in the AFC. That's 2 teams out of 14 other. 2 out of 16 are bad. The rest are probably pretty good or really good. Like that's not true in the NFC. Like Rodgers is used to having 2 bad teams just in his division, let alone the entire conference. So I wonder how he adjusts to all that. Sudden, you know what I mean? I just got to see it. I could be wrong, but hey, right now in my heart, I see a very lackluster Jets team. This is the one that's going to probably piss off the most. By the way, you'll notice something about the records. Let me just put the second place team up there. I thought I did 7-9 too, but I put 8-10. So with Miami, I think they have a very good offense. I think Tua is a good quarterback. I think what happened before Tua started getting hurt though, and it's very untalked about, is that teams were starting to figure out how to stop Tua in the Dolphins offense. And there is a book on how to beat him and how to slow him down, how to stop him. And teams were starting to do that. And then he got the concussions, and that kind of, the conversation around that kind of died a little bit. But teams were starting to figure them out last year. So again, I wonder if they have enough inventiveness. Is Kyle or is Mike McDaniel really like a offensive guru? Or is he like a smoke and mirrors guy, kind of like the coach for the Bears with Mitch. Matt Nagy, is he like a Matt Nagy smoke and mirrors kind of guy? I want to see that in this season. I want to see Tua basically have durability. One of the biggest concerns for me about Tua coming into the league was his health. Can he play a full NFL season without getting hurt? Well, we'll see. I hope to God he can. I pray he stays healthy this year because that's for the better for the Patriots. But But again, I wonder if if he has that durability. Again, that was my only knock against him. Great accuracy, has decent arm, seems to have all the intangibles you'd want in an NFL QB. But boy, does I not know if he can stay healthy. It's a similar problem for Bryce Young. I just don't know how healthy Bryce Young can stay during the course of like a full NFL season, right? Like, does he have the size and like the durability? Can he take the hits? And again, I also don't really like the Dolphins defense. They added Ramsey, but he's gone till December. So it's basically the same secondary as last year, which wasn't good at all. Their defense wasn't good at all last year, and it doesn't seem like it got any better. And it seems like they lost the only reason it got slightly better in Ramsey. So I'm like, all right, maybe it'll be good this year. It wasn't last year, but they didn't really get any big drafts because I don't think they have many draft picks this year. So it's kind of like, every year there's always a couple teams that miss the playoffs from the year before, and I think this year it's the Jaguars and Dolphins. Now, could I be wrong? Yeah, sure. But again, there's something in my gut tells me there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in that Dolphins offense. I'm very hesitant on saying Tua's going to play 17. And again, I don't really caveat injuries. It's literally just it's like two teams I'll caveat injuries for. It's, you know... But again, if Tua starts taking hits and not getting hurt, then I'll just erase that. But again, there's a few things I want to see: consistency, all yada yada yada, right? And we'll see if Miami is more than they were last year, or if they truly only made the playoffs last year because the Patriots failed to win a game. And that's true, by the way. The reason the Dolphins were able to make the playoffs is basically if the Patriots had won 9 of their games last year, the Dolphins weren't making the playoffs. Like, that's just basically how it plays out. I think that's even literally week 18, the Dolphins made the playoffs because the Patriots lost to the Bills. Regarding the Patriots, they have a lot of... their offense is not going to be the greatest. One thing I will say is they are coached by Bill Belichick, so you always have to keep that in mind. The coaching will keep them in most games. Keeps them in most of the games last year. They were like blown out, like twice last year. Even the game against Buffalo, the last game, it looks like an ugly score, but like if you go look at it and like only count offense, not special teams, the Patriots would have won that game. Like 21-22 to 14. But the Bills scored a couple touchdowns on special teams, so So again, one of the things I think about, so really good coaching. They fixed all the offensive coaching problems, so that should be wildly improved. That's going to be the biggest thing, is the fact that they're not coached by Patricia anymore on offense. They have a real offensive coordinator. Their offense may not be the greatest, but now they can probably average around 24 to 28 points per game. And based on what they did last year, that would have given them like 12 or 13 wins. I'm just saying, like, this notion that the Patriots are this like really bad destitute team is really silly, considering like I think their DVOA or DVAO value for their defense was like 3 last year. So again, they're an elite defense, a very young elite defense that is very well coached by Belichick. Special teams will be much improved. Again, it's going to be directly coached by Joe Judge, who coached it during the dynasty run for the Patriots when their secondary or when their special teams was literally like unreal. Joe Judge is a bad offensive coach, very good special teams guy. That's what his job was with the Patriots. Again, I think the offense is going to be massively improved, even if it's only by like a touchdown a game. That's enough for the Patriots to start winning actual double-digit wins again. Go look at some of their losses. It wasn't by a lot. They'd lose a lot of like one-score games where it's like, damn, if they had a real offensive coach, they might have won this game. And they just they just made a lot of dumb offensive decisions last year. And it's like, it clearly came down to Patricia. Again, with O'Brien, competent coach, really bad player personnel guy. Don't let him do player personnel shit. Just let him coach. I don't know. Big year for Mac. I think he lives up to it. I think the Patriots make the playoffs this year. They sneak in. They're not going to be like a top team, but I think they do. They're able to sneak in. I think the offense has made a good enough addition of the additions of Mike Gesicki, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think those are 2 big moves. I think Zeke makes one of their big problems has been red zone. One of the things Zeke Elliott does really well is produce in the red zone. So they finally have a kind of solution to the red zone issues. Again, they've done everything right. Again, they're running a 2 tight end system, so that kind of opens up Juju, and Juju can't be the number 1, so you have Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne on the field at the same time as Juju, frees up attention, and the main eyes are going to be on Hunter and Gesicki anyway, because it's a dual TE system, and that's going to let Juju get open and kind of do what he did in Kansas City. So it's kind of like you can see how the offense might start to work, how it could be effective in an NFL kind of dominated by more normal sized corners and, not giant freak. Like everything seems to be able to work. We'll see. That's kind of how I think. I'm not trying to be biased. I just like the moves that the Patriots have made. Even if I didn't like them, I'd think this way, by the way. I'd be like, dude, that's a really good defense, really good special teams, elite level coaching. What am I missing here? Again, the offensive line's questionable, but I think you can kind of scheme around. And there's like 3 good linemen in New England. I think if you have at least 3 good linemen, you're okay. It's questionable, but we'll see how it performs, right? I think it's better than the Jets and the Dolphins line by 1,000%, though. And obviously that leaves the Bills. They're going to win a lot of games. Josh Allen's good. Their team's good. They have good coaching. There's barely any problems with the team. Their defense is a little weak because they're getting older, but they should be fine. Their offense should be a bit improved because of the addition of that rookie Dalton Kincaid or whatever his name is. Kincaid. I don't know his first name. But I think he should help the offense out quite a bit. I don't know. The Bills will win the division probably comfortably, like 11, 12 wins, and the Patriots will probably win like 10. So it'll be close, but the Bills are still the dog, the top team of the AFC East, in my opinion. All right, let's wrap this up. We've been we've been talking for a while. So in 7th place, I have the Patriots. I think they sneak in. I don't think they win a playoff game, but I think they could sneak in. Number 6, I have the Baltimore Ravens with 12 wins. Baltimore would be the 5 seed, but again, I think Kansas City is going to be the 2nd best team in the AFC this year behind the Chargers. It's just super. Again, I literally think the Chiefs are the 2nd best team in the AFC, but the fucking Chargers get them by a game. That's literally how this plays out in my head. Of course, then we have the division winners, the Titans, number 4. They're probably going to have the worst record of the division winners. Probably a worse record than even the Ravens, in my opinion, but they'll still be 4 because the NFL division winners. Then we have the Buffalo Bills finishing in 3rd place. I think they're good, but I think the other 2 teams are a little better. I think the Bengals finished as the 2 seed with 11 to 13 wins, probably 12. And then we see the Chargers. I think they'll win between 12 I think they actually win 13 games this year, but we'll see. Yeah, so basically that's kind of how it plays out. I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. What do you think of my standings? What do you think about everything, how it plays? Where do you think I was dead wrong? Where do you think I was really accurate or really good? Yeah, like just kind of, I'm quite curious to see what everybody thinks about all that. So, I think that's about that though. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know your AFC predictions down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Again, thank you so much for sticking with me all the way through to the end of this nearly 40-minute video. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna get out of here now. NFC North or NFC predictions coming tomorrow. Again, let me know what you think. Hopefully, you guys enjoy this piece of content. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Remember, it's always go Lions, go Tigers, and always, always, always go Patriots. NFL coming right up. Can't wait. Enjoy the predictions. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.